WandaVision episode 4 has just come out, and we are going to talk all about it. This will be a spoiler review. We're going to talk about plot points from the episode. So if you have not seen WandaVision episode 4 yet, go ahead and watch it and come on back and enjoy my response and review of the episode. But we are going to talk about a lot of things that happened. So this is episode 4 of WandaVision. Hey everybody, Dan here, and this is Dan Reviews It. Going to talk about WandaVision episode 4. Like I said, spoilers here, so proceed with caution. But if you are new to the channel, welcome. Hit that subscribe button below if you don't mind. I would love to have you aboard my channel as a regular subscriber. But let's get right into the show, because this episode now comes full circle from where we started. We didn't quite know what was happening those first 2, even 3 episodes, really. Although sort of drips and drabs were coming in episode 3. But here, like I said, we come full circle because we are now mostly on the outside of the town of Westview and the quote-unquote sitcom that Wanda and Vision are in, and we are mostly on the outside now of that and dealing with a lot of the characters in that way. So the episode opens up with Monica, who we sort of had seen briefly in the first episode, and then a little more in the second episode, and then major character in episode 3, playing this neighbor Geraldine of Wanda's. But we learn that she's actually Monica Rambeau, who played a minor part in Captain Marvel as a young girl, because of course that took place in the 20 years ago, I should say, in the 90s, or almost 30 years ago, I guess now. But she's the daughter of Maria Rambeau, who was, you know, kind of a major character in the Captain Marvel film. So she wakes up in the hospital, and she is reforming. She's coming back from the blip. And as she's sort of walking through the corridors of the hallway, a lot of people coming back from the blip, of course, from after Endgame, which we knew from different news sources that this show, WandaVision, takes place after Endgame. But up until this episode, we really had no indication of like how or what that meant, or, you know, anything. So now we're finally seeing it from the current time perspective. And while she's waking up, we even hear a few moments of Brie Larson as Captain Marvel talking to her when she was a kid. So the nurse at the hospital tells Monica, oh, you know, welcome back, but your mom, Maria, died 3 years ago, which is 2 years after you left. So that now is indicating to Monica, okay, so this has been now 5 years that people have been gone from the blip, including her. So then we see the great Marvel MCU opening titles, and that is actually the only opening titles we see in this episode. The first few episodes, we also got a sitcom theme song from, you know, WandaVision, whatever, and we don't get any of that at all, because this is not centered around a quote-unquote new episode of the show that they're trapped in. It's, you know, repeating kind of the first 3 episodes. So then we go to SWORD headquarters, and we identified last week. I never even heard of SWORD before, you know, the last episode, but it stands for Sentient Weapon Observation Response Division, which I explained in my last review. And we hear from this dude, Tyler Hayward, who Monica knows and kind of meets as she walks in. They talk about how her mother, Maria, built this place from the ground up, but now she is actually grounded. She will not be doing air missions for the moment, and that was based on something that her mom commanded, you know, as sort of a dying wish type of thing, in the case that the vanished people ever returned. But he makes it a point to say, she did believe that you would return someday. So then we see she's on a mission now. She's driving to New Jersey, specifically to Westview. We see the signs for this. And now we know that, okay, this place, Westview, that Wanda and Vision are in, is in New Jersey. We didn't know that previously. And then we see Randall Park. You know, I love this dude from Fresh Off the Boat and The Interview and many other things. But here He is FBI agent Jimmy Woo, and you may remember him in Ant-Man. He was the parole officer, and he tells Monica immediately, look, we've got an issue because we had a witness here that was in witness protection, and now he has fled, and no one has even heard of him. So I'm not sure what to do. And then they talk to the local police from Eastview, and they say that Westview doesn't even exist. So then they hightail it out of there, leaving basically Randall and Monica to be like, all right, what is even going on? So she takes out this helicopter-looking drone and flies it. She looks down on her scanner. She's flying it into the town of Westview, and it goes grainy on her screen, disappears from the air, and she now is in front of this big energy field, basically made of static color from a television set. And so she kind of reaches into it. It pulls her into the town, and Jimmy Woo does not see her anymore. As far as he's concerned, she disappears. So then we have 24 hours later, we meet another old favorite from the MCU. It's Kat Dennings as Darcy Lewis, of course, from the Thor movies. And she is now an astrophysicist and driving to the Sword response base in van or whatever with a bunch of different people that are here to help. And so they're all set up in these tents outside Westview. We see drones being sent in, disappearing in the energy field completely, and she hooks up, one of her devices, and she's fighting all of this, what she calls cosmic microwave background radiation, CMBR. And there's all these other elements that are overpowering the noise. So finally, this is about 14 minutes into the episode, we see Wanda for the first time. But it's not new to us. It is from episode 1 of the actual show WandaVision. So we already saw all of this stuff. But Darcy is seeing it on her screen, and she asks for an old picture tube set, not a flat TV set. So they do get her one. And then HQ in the next scene is set up with all these different types of radar. And Darcy, is basically rewatching episode 1, or maybe it's live, we're not sure, but she is indicating that, yes, this has been recorded. I've been recording since the beginning. And then we finally notice, okay, this is Wanda and Vision. And I had actually forgotten about this because I've only seen many of the more recent Avengers movies and the MCU movies once. But she indicates, this is Vision, but he died. Wasn't blipped. He died, which then I was like, oh, right, he dies not in Endgame. He dies in Infinity War before the blip even happens, which I had forgotten about. So I'm glad that they brought that up as a plot point. And she's not sure if it's real or not, if it's happening right now, if it's pre-recorded content that she's seeing. She has no idea, but she explains her CMBR readings as far as she knows, and her best theory is that basically the universe created a sitcom starring 2 of the Avengers. And so we now know that at the end of that first episode of WandaVision that we saw, it is Darcy's hand that's actually, sort of pulling out from the TV, as the camera from what we saw was pulling back. So things, as you might be able to tell, I think are a little hard to talk about because now we're getting layer upon layer of things happening. Things happening in the WandaVision show that we have seen in episodes 1, 2, and 3, and then they're seeing it for the first time here in episode 4 in the universe. So as we move on here, Jimmy is trying to get any sort of intel on Monica. Can't figure out where she went, what happened to her, and he's starting to hang pictures up of whoever they figure out is in the sitcom world. And so Darcy Lewis will start rattling off people. She'll be like, oh, okay, so Mr. and Mrs. Hart, the bosses of Vision in this episode, are played by, this person. And so they keep going along that theme. And I looked up one of the names she mentioned, which is Sharon Davis, just to see, okay, is this somebody from the comics? Is this somebody from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.? Is this somebody we should know? And as near as I can tell, no. Sharon Davis, for example, is the supervising art director of WandaVision in, I guess, real life, or maybe in the credits, because we do see credits rolling at the end of the episode that Darcy's watching. So I don't know, actually. But in the meantime, Jimmy is making all these notes and lists on this dry erase board, things, that they don't know, such as, why is this a sitcom? Why is it a hexagonal shape that they're seeing? So in the meantime, they're now sort of in episode 2, where they get to see the helicopter drone that Wanda saw in episode 2, then picked up from the bushes. We saw it as well, and it was in color, whereas everything else was in black and white. But one thing I didn't really notice when Monica first pulled out the helicopter drone in the beginning of the episode, it was a very sleek, very now-looking helicopter drone. But in the episode, it looks very, very retro and 60s-like. And that gets pointed out by Jimmy, I guess, because he's the one who saw the original drone go in, and he's like, why does it look retro and old? And she's like, I don't know. I guess because, this is the decade that they're in. So at first they do see Monica sort of in the background, but then in episode 2, Darcy points out, oh, look, she's got a speaking role. This is when they're sort of at the pool club that we all saw in episode 2. And she gets this idea that, well, she's got a radio. Jimmy, why don't you try and communicate with her through the radio? And, I'll kind of watch from the background, whatever, and look for readings and stuff. So that's where we got the radio static in episode 2 over top of Help Me Rhonda by the Beach Boys. We hear Wanda, can you hear me? Can you hear me? I didn't know what that was at the time, but now, of course, we do. We know that it's Jimmy trying to get a hold of her. And Darcy notices that something is amiss, that, certainly Wanda has sort of looked at the radio, but so did the other girl in the scene. So what does that mean? Darcy doesn't know yet. So then we have another agent named Franklin going on this mission. He's like tunneling through to get inside the barrier underground. So he does so, but the tow line that he was connected to breaks, and then there's all these bees buzzing around him. So he comes out from the manhole and is standing there in his beekeeper's outfit, surrounded by bees. And this is something that we saw as well earlier. I think it was in episode 2. It's kind of hard with 1 and 2 because they were released on the same day, so I saw them, back to back. But I think that was the end of episode 2. But that makes sense because now, back in the current episode, we see them watching episode 3, specifically Wanda having the baby. And then Darcy hears the Ultron reference, and then it jumps right to the credits. So Wu and Lewis do not see, anything really past that. They don't really hear the conversation about Wanda having twins and this and that. But we now, as the audience of episode 4, jump into episode 3. And then the rest of episode 4 here is what actually happened on last week's WandaVision that we didn't see as the audience. So what we see here is Wanda basically telling Monica to get out. She knows Geraldine's still at this point, but she uses her powers, her big energy manipulating, the big red light powers to, eject her from the complex, bursting through several fences as she does it. And then, at the end of the last episode, we saw her laying in the field and stuff, but of course we had no idea how she got there. My best guess was that Wanda used her powers, which, made the most sense, and so here we see that is true. And all of a sudden, Wanda is, very well aware of her powers. I think more so than just the little stuff she was doing in episodes 1 and 2, more of like the telekinesis and levitating type stuff. This is now her, her big deal powers, and she's rebuilding the bookshelf. And then Vision comes in, asks where Geraldine is. She lies to him, and she had to go real quick, whatever. But as she looks up, she sees the dead Vision from the end of Infinity War, where, his face is basically all gray, and he's got the big hole in his head from where the Infinity Stone was taken out. So okay, that's only for a second though. Then he goes back to regular vision, and then they sit down and watch TV. And oh, what do you want to watch tonight, honey? And that's the end of the episode. So I thought originally, because we were going decade by decade, that maybe just the last couple of episodes would keep progressing in that format, because we started with the 50s, then the 60s, and then last week was the 70s. I figured this week would be the 80s. And we've certainly seen some things in previews for, okay, here's what's happening on WandaVision this season, or whatever. It's still slated as a miniseries, so I guess, it's not really this season per se, but whatever. But there was definitely some 80s sitcom type sequences that we saw. To me, it looked like a Perfect Strangers type set, maybe Family Ties or something, but we have not seen that yet. Maybe even Newhart, the Newhart show where he owned the hotel. But we haven't seen that yet. So is that coming next week? I don't know. But this is basically, a piecing together of the first 3 episodes, and it's certainly answering some questions, leaving a lot of others on the table, I think, as we go along. But boy, oh boy, I mean, this show, I gave the first 3 episodes B pluses because I just wasn't sure where it was leading. I was certainly intrigued. It's certainly way more complex than anything the MCU has given us so far. Certainly in one title. I mean, yes, the Avengers movies sort of combine 20 different movies in one, but in terms of one person, or in this case 2, I guess, with Wanda and Vision, but whatever. So I wasn't sure where to go, but now that they're connecting all of these things, I wasn't sure if we were going to have to wait until episode 8, 7, 8, 9 to finally connect everything or not. But I mean, this episode showed very little of Wanda or Vision, and most of what we got was sort of rehashed stuff that we, the audience, already saw. But Jimmy and Darcy are new to it, and are sort of piecing things together themselves. But now we know at least some sort of thing about, okay, we know why now. Well, not why they're in the sitcom necessarily, but why at least episodes 1 and 2 were in a 50s and 60s sitcom, and then in the 3rd episode they were in color, So we're sort of trying to figure it out along with Darcy and Jimmy and the rest of the crew, I guess, at Sword. But I sense that we're going to mainly focus on their findings. I think they're kind of going to be the heroes of all of this. I think they're going to be the ones to figure out what's going on and get Wanda and Vision out of that cycle, if that's what needs to be done. But as for now, I think this is more brilliant writing. I think this is the most complex thing, really, that the MCU has done so far with a singular title, and I am here for it. I am excited about this. So I'm going to definitely bump this up from the B+, and I am going to, for now, at least this episode, I'm going to give it an A. So overall, I would say the season gets an A- so far, but I'm so excited to see where this goes week after week, and I think Disney Plus is being very smart in not releasing it all at once, because then it's building hype week after week, just like they did with Mandalorian, to get this. So that's going to do it. I'll be back next week for another recap and review for episode 5. And much like episode 3, this, I guess, will have a title along the way, but I do these immediately when the show drops, and they don't have titles up. So last week, I said, I think it's just called episode 3, but it turns out it's called Now in Color. So episode 4 will probably have a different title in the next day or two. For now, I can only call it episode 4 because that's the only thing that exists on the Disney Plus site, but which is also smart. They're keeping things, close to the vest. They really don't want to give spoilers, and I applaud them for that. So anyway, how did you like the episode? How is WandaVision coming together for you? Let me know in the comments below. I would love to have a dialogue with you about your thoughts as well. So thanks for coming by and watching my video. Please subscribe. Consider hitting that like button as well if you did like my synopsis here and review. And we'll see you back here next time. Bye.